He thought the war had taken everything until a lost locket returned. This locket wasn't just jewelry, it was a promise. A young soldier carried it into the jungle through fire and fear, believing it would bring him home. But one night, it vanished. And with it, he thought he had lost the woman who gave it to him. For 50 years, he lived in silence, until one ordinary day, the locket returned, and with it, a voice from the past. Welcome to The Last Stand, where we tell the stories of forgotten courage, quiet sacrifice, and the unshakable bonds that never truly fade. Today, we follow the journey of a locket lost in the chaos of war, hidden for decades, and rediscovered in the hands of a soldier who thought he had nothing left to remember. But this locket carried more than silver and photographs. It carried a love, a promise, and a voice long thought silent. And as you'll see, some promises are never truly lost. It began in the attic of an old house on a quiet Saturday morning. Dust floated in the beams of sunlight cutting through a cracked window. Boxes piled high, their cardboard edges softened by time. A young man named Daniel pushed one aside, coughing as he lifted the lid. He was helping his aunt clean the house she had just bought at auction. Most of the boxes were filled with scraps, old newspapers, broken kitchenware, toys long forgotten. But tucked beneath a stack of faded quilts, Daniel saw a small wooden jewelry box. The lid creaked as he opened it. Inside lay a heart-shaped locket. Tarnished silver, the hinges nearly rusted, but still intact. He wiped the dust with his thumb, and as it swung open, 2 photographs stared back at him. On the left, a young man in uniform. Sharp eyes, pressed jacket, barely older than 20. On the right, a young woman with soft curls, smiling gently. The images were no larger than thumbnails, yet they carried a weight that froze Daniel where he stood. He whispered to himself, "Who were you two?" The locket was unlike anything else in the boxes. Daniel turned it over, looking for a name. On the back, faint but legible, was an inscription, H.M., until we meet again. Daniel's aunt called from downstairs. "Daniel, are you done up there?" "Almost," he replied, slipping the locket into his pocket. Something told him this wasn't just trinket jewelry. It belonged to someone once, someone who had loved deeply. That night in his small apartment, Daniel placed the locket under his desk lamp. The faces seemed clearer now. The soldier's eyes were steady, disciplined, yet hopeful. The woman's smile seemed to carry a promise. Daniel typed into his laptop, "Heart-shaped locket WWE soldier photo." The search yielded countless images, but nothing identical. Then he thought about the inscription. "H.M." He tried. "H.M. locket soldier inscription until we meet again." No results. But Daniel wasn't discouraged. If anything, his curiosity deepened. The next day, Daniel took a photo of the locket and posted it on a veterans history forum. His caption was simple. "Found this locket in an old house. One side shows a soldier, the other a young woman. Back is inscribed H.M. until we meet again. Anyone recognize this?" At first, the post went unnoticed. A few likes, a few curious comments. But within hours, the thread began to grow. The uniform looks like early Vietnam era. That haircut maybe late 60s? Could be Army. Hard to tell from the small picture. Then a user named OldCorzone1967 commented, "I swear I know that face. If that's who I think it is, you've stumbled onto something important." A private message followed. "Kid, that soldier looks a lot like Henry Mallory. He was in my training unit at Fort Benning, 1967. We lost touch after deployment, but Henry always carried a locket with his girl's picture in it. He said it was his good luck charm." Daniel's pulse quickened. "Could it be?" he asked. "Do you know if he's still alive?" The response took a few minutes. "Last I heard, he came back, but he wasn't the same. Quiet, kept to himself. Some say he never married. Some say he still lives out west. Haven't seen him in 50 years. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He placed the locket on his nightstand. The inscription glimmered faintly under the streetlight sneaking through his blinds. "Until we meet again." He imagined the young couple Henry and M, whoever she was. Did they ever meet again? Or was the locket a promise left unfulfilled? Daniel thought of his own life, 25 years old, in and out of short relationships, never certain about anything. And here was a piece of metal, decades old, still whispering of a love strong enough to be carried to war. By morning, Daniel made up his mind. He would find Henry Mallory. Daniel reached out to veterans organizations, posted in local history groups, even emailed a few military archivists. Days passed. Then one reply came back. Henry Mallory, Vietnam veteran, born 1946, listed as residing in Montana. Daniel felt a rush of adrenaline. Montana was across the country, but at least it was a lead. He pulled the locket from his pocket, held it tightly, and whispered, "Henry, if you're still out there, this belongs to you." Hundreds of miles away, in a small Montana town, an old man sat on his porch. His hair was white, his hands rough, his eyes still sharp despite the years. He had long since stopped expecting visitors. The days were quiet, broken only by the wind in the pines. Inside his jacket, against his chest, he once carried a locket, but it had been lost decades ago on a night he never spoke about. To him, it was gone forever, along with the dreams of youth. Until now, the reply from the Veterans Registry was all Daniel needed. A name, a town, Montana. He zoomed in on the map, remote, small, a cluster of streets surrounded by endless fields. It took 3 days of calls before he found a working number. When a gravelly voice answered, Daniel's chest tightened. "Hello? Mr. Mallory? Henry Mallory?" A long pause, then, "Who's asking?" Daniel swallowed. "My name is Daniel. I think I found something of yours." There was silence on the line. Daniel continued. "It's a locket, silver, heart-shaped. Inside, a picture of a soldier looks just like you, sir, and a young woman. On the back it says, H. Me. Until we meet again." The old man's breath caught. For a moment, Daniel wondered if the line had dropped. Then Henry spoke, his voice cracked and low. "Young man, where did you find that?" "In an old house. It was in a box, tucked away. I thought it might belong to someone who deserved it back." Another long pause. Then Henry said only, "Don't mail it. If you're serious, you bring it yourself." A week later, Daniel drove west, the locket hanging from the rearview mirror like a small pendulum guiding him. Mile after mile, he rehearsed what he would say. But how could he? It wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was a story, and he was about to deliver it to the man who had lived it. By the time he reached Montana, the sun was setting, painting the sky in deep orange and purple. He pulled into a gravel driveway where an old house stood, weather-beaten but steady. On the porch sat Henry Mallory. Even at 80, his presence was commanding, his back straight, eyes sharp. Daniel stepped out, clutching the locket. "Mr. Prosters." "Mallory," he said softly. Henry's gaze dropped immediately to the object in Daniel's hand. His lips trembled. For the first time in decades, he saw it again. Henry took the locket with shaking hands. His thumb brushed the inscription. He closed it, opened it, stared at the two faces inside. "Her name was Margaret," he whispered. "We called her Maggie. She gave me this the night before I shipped out. Said, 'If you wear this, you'll never be alone.'" Daniel sat quietly, letting the silence fill the porch. Henry's voice grew rough. "I carried it through every firefight. Slept with it in the mud. And then, one night, it was gone. We were ambushed. In the scramble, I lost it. I thought, maybe it was better that way." "Because Maggie was gone too." Daniel frowned. "Gone?" Henry nodded. "While I was overseas, she passed. Car accident. I came home to nothing but a folded flag and a locket I couldn't find. I thought it was the world's way of saying, 'Move on.'" For a long time, neither spoke. The cicadas droned in the background. Henry's hand closed tight around the locket. "Young man," he finally said, "I don't know why it found its way back. Maybe to remind me, maybe to punish me, but I can't wear it anymore. Too much hurt." Daniel leaned forward. "Or maybe it's not about wearing it. Maybe it's about telling the story." Henry looked at him sharply, studying this stranger who had driven across states just to hand him a piece of his past. "You think anyone cares about an old man's story?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I do. And I think a lot more people would too." That evening, Daniel asked if he could record Henry's words. Just audio, nothing fancy. At first, Henry refused. Then, after a long sigh, he agreed. In the dim glow of a single porch light, Henry spoke into Daniel's phone. "I was 19 when I left. Maggie was 18. We were kids, thinking we had forever. That locket, it wasn't jewelry, it was a promise. When I lost it, I thought I lost her too. And when I came back and she wasn't here, I put that chapter in the ground with her." He paused, voice breaking. "But it seems chapters don't stay buried forever." Daniel uploaded a small clip to the same veterans forum, Henry's trembling voice holding the locket. Within hours, comments poured in. "That's Henry Mallory? I remember him. Strongest guy in the platoon. I served with him in '69. He saved 3 of us in the jungle. We thought he disappeared. Someone tell him he's not forgotten." Henry didn't own a computer. Daniel read the messages aloud. With each one, Henry's eyes softened. "They still remember," he whispered. Then came a message from a woman in Illinois. "My mother's name was Margaret. She used to tell us about a boy she loved before the war. She always wore a necklace shaped like a heart. When she died, we never found it. Could this be?" Daniel's breath caught. He showed Henry. The old man's hands shook so hard he almost dropped the phone. "Maggie had children?" he asked, voice trembling. The woman had signed off with her name, Claire. Henry didn't sleep that night. The locket sat on the table beside his chair, glowing faintly in the porch light. His fingers kept brushing it, as if to make sure it was real, as if it wouldn't vanish again. He whispered Maggie's name like a prayer. For decades he thought her gone, completely, with nothing left but fading memories. But now children? A daughter named Claire? By morning, Daniel found Henry already dressed, sitting stiffly with a notebook open. On the first page, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "What do I say to her?" Daniel helped set up a call. Claire answered, her voice warm but cautious. "Mr. Mallory?" Henry swallowed hard. "Just Henry, ma'am." "Please." There was silence on both ends. Then Claire said softly, "My mother, Maggie, she used to talk about you. Not often, but when she did, her face would change. She said once that she gave you something, and that if the world was kind, it would find its way back." Henry's throat tightened. He held the locket up to the phone camera. Claire gasped. "That's it. I remember her showing it to me when I was a little girl. She said it carried her heart inside." For the first time in years, Henry's eyes overflowed. He didn't wipe the tears. He let them fall. Claire insisted on meeting. Within days, she and her son drove across states to Montana. When Henry saw them step out of the car, his knees nearly buckled. Claire looked so much like Maggie, it was as if time had folded back on itself. The same eyes, the same smile. For Henry, it was both joy and ache, life and loss at once. She hugged him without hesitation. "For years," she whispered, "I wondered who you were. Now I don't have to wonder." That night they sat around Henry's old kitchen table. Daniel recorded as Claire brought out a small box of keepsakes. Inside were photographs of Maggie as a young mother, a lock of hair, and letters she had written but never sent. One letter caught Henry's breath. It was addressed, "To Henry, if he ever comes home." He unfolded it carefully. Maggie's handwriting danced across the page. "If you return and I cannot be there, remember that I loved you. Remember that I believed in you. And if this locket ever finds you again, know that it carried me with you." Henry's hands trembled so badly that Claire steadied them. Together they read, and together they wept. For decades, Henry had avoided reunions, avoided telling his story. He thought no one wanted to hear about jungle nights and ambushes, about carrying men out under fire, about losing more than he ever won. But now, with Daniel and Claire beside him, he spoke. He told of Maggie's face in the locket, giving him courage when fear clawed at him, of the night he lost it, when he thought he had lost her forever. Of the silence he carried back home, heavier than any pack. Claire listened, tears streaming. "She never forgot you. She just couldn't talk about it. But she carried you too." The next morning, Daniel suggested something simple. He took a photograph of Henry holding the locket in one hand and Maggie's letter in the other, with Claire at his side. The image was posted online. Within hours, it spread. Headlines read, "Lost Locket Reunites Soldier with the Family of His First Love." Messages poured in. "Thank you for sharing this beautiful story. My father had a locket too. He never spoke of it. This shows that love doesn't die, it just waits." Henry was stunned. "I thought the world was too busy to care." Daniel smiled. Turns out they were just waiting to be reminded. That evening, Claire's son, Michael, asked Henry to tell him about the war. Henry hesitated, then he placed the locket in the boy's palm. "This isn't just about war," Henry said. "It's about love, about remembering someone even when the world tries to make you forget. If you carry anything in life, carry that." Michael closed his small hand around the locket, nodding solemnly. For Henry, it was as if Maggie's promise had come full circle. The love he thought buried had been handed forward, not lost, not forgotten, but alive in another generation. Later, after Claire and Michael went to bed, Henry sat on the porch with Daniel. The night was cool. The stars spread like a quilt. Henry whispered, "I never got to give her a wedding ring, never got to keep my promise, but somehow this feels like she's here again." Daniel replied gently, "Sometimes love doesn't end, it just changes form." Henry nodded, clutching the locket to his chest. For the first time in 50 years, he felt peace settle in his bones. Autumn settled over Montana, crisp mornings brushing frost across the porch rails. Henry sat outside each day, the locket resting in his hand, as though afraid it might vanish again if he let go. But now, he wasn't alone. Claire visited often, bringing warmth into the house that had once known only silence. Daniel checked in too, always ready with questions, always reminding Henry that his story mattered. The locket had been lost, but its return reshaped everything. It wasn't just a piece of silver anymore, it was proof that even broken promises could echo across decades and still bring people together. One evening, Henry asked Claire and Daniel to sit with him. His voice was weaker than before, but steady. "I carried this locket into every battle," he said. "When I lost it, I thought I'd lost Maggie, and maybe myself too. But now I see it wasn't meant for me to keep forever. It was meant to find its way back to you, Claire. To her family. To remind you she loved me, and I loved her." He placed the locket into Claire's hands. She shook her head, tears brimming. "No, Henry, this belongs to you." Henry smiled faintly. "It did. But I can't carry it where I'm going. It belongs to the living now. To you, to Michael. Tell the story. Keep it alive." Claire closed her fingers around the locket, sobbing quietly. Michael, sitting beside her, looked at Henry with wide eyes, sensing the weight of the moment. A week later, Daniel arrived early and found Henry still on the porch, the flag not yet raised. The old man sat peacefully, his eyes closed, a faint smile on his lips. The folded uniform he once wore was draped neatly across his lap. Henry Mallory had gone quietly, as soldiers often did, without fanfare, without complaint. The locket now rested with Claire. But Henry had left behind something more, a letter written in shaky script. "To whoever holds this locket after me, this isn't just metal, it's a promise, a reminder that love outlasts war, silence, and even death. I thought I carried it for luck, but really it carried me. Maggie gave me courage when I had none, and now it's your turn. Carry it, not as mine, but as ours, for family, for memory, for love." The funeral was small, but it did not feel empty. Veterans came from towns nearby, some hobbling with canes, some in crisp jackets with medals pinned. Daniel filmed as they lined the path, saluting as Henry's casket passed. Claire placed the locket on top of the folded flag draped across the coffin. It shimmered in the morning sun, catching every eye. A chaplain spoke. This was a man who thought he was forgotten. But as you can see, he was never forgotten. Not by comrades, not by family, not by history. When taps played, the sound drifted over the hills, soft and haunting. Claire's hand never left the locket. That evening, Michael held the locket and asked his mother, "Should I wear it?" Claire smiled through her tears. "Not to keep it, but to remember. Your grandmother gave it for love. Henry carried it for courage. Now you carry it for memory." Michael slipped the chain around his neck. The silver heart rested against his chest, heavy but warm. He whispered, almost to himself, "I'll remember. This is not just the story of a locket. It is the story of promises that survive across decades, of love that never truly dies, and of a soldier who thought his voice was lost, but found it again through those who remembered. We all carry something." For Henry, it was a locket. For Maggie, It was hope. For Claire and Michael, it is memory. Because some legacies are not written in books, but in the hearts that refuse to forget.